The GE75 Raider is packed with great features including USB 3.2, Type A and Type C, an SD card reader, killer gaming network adapters, as well as mini DisplayPort and HDMI for additional monitor connectivity. The Type A ports also light up to easily connect peripherals when gaming in the dark. For sound, the laptop has two giant speakers and subwoofer complementing the Sabre hi-fi audio jacks. The built-in multi-touch touchpad is coupled with a SteelSeries per-key RGB keyboard with lighting profile support through the SteelSeries Engine app. Configurations of the GE75 Raider include powerful hardware up to an Intel Core i9 9880H processor and NVIDIA GeForce RTX 2080 GPU, while keeping temperatures down with Cooler Boost technology. The thin bezel display is 17.3 inches in size and with a full HD 1080p IPS-Level panel that features a 144Hz refresh rate for smoother gaming performance. For portability, the laptop weighs about 5.7 pounds and is about 15.5 inches in width, about 10.5 inches in depth, and just a hair over 1 inch in height when the lid is closed. Take the fight to the enemy with the GE75 Raider.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Meet the MSI GE75 Raider 9SF. That is right, we have 9th gen Intel CPU inside this 17-inch gaming laptop sent over to me for review from HID Evolution. HID Evolution specializes in liquid metal applications that will not void your warranty. Inside we have the i7-9750H, the RTX 2070. This is the 115 watt variant. No max Q in here today. We're running dual channel RAM, two 8GB sticks at 2666. Inside we have the Samsung NVMe SSD, half a terabyte here. Now, feel free to customize this to your heart's content. HID has a plethora of selections should you wish different types of storage. There's also an empty M.2 slot in our review model today, as well as an extra bay for the 2.5-inch drive. That bay does look a little odd, but I assure you it is plug and play, and the bracketry and screws will come included with this chassis. The network interface card is a killer 1550i on an Intel 9560 chip. The battery, 53 watt hours on this Optimus laptop, no G-Sync here, so expect about 2 to 3 hours unplugged. Those that are hardcore into tweaking perhaps can get a little bit more. Powering this laptop is a relatively decent sized 280 watt brick. When purchasing your laptop through HID Evolution for a small fee, you can have the professionals install liquid metal. Having the best thermal interface material on your CPU and GPU is going to guarantee the coolest possible solution on your laptop. The yellow Kapton tape, as well as the foam barriers, will of course prevent any sort of spillage. Again, remember, this is warranted through them. On top of that, the stock thermal pads have been removed and replaced with Fuji polythermal pads. Top-notch, grade A, well done work here, HID. The mostly aluminum plastic bottom panel build weighs in at around 5.6 pounds, which is relatively light given the 17-inch form factor. The I/O over on the left-hand side features a Kensington lock, a LAN port, HDMI 2.0, a mini DisplayPort 1.2, USB Type-A 3.1 Gen 2, and a USB Type-C 3.1 Gen 2, as well as a separate headphone and microphone jack. Over on the right, we have a SD card reader, which is connected via USB 2.0, so not the fastest read-write speeds, although the card does insert itself nearly all the way into the chassis and is spring-loaded, something I quite like. As well as the two USB Type-A 3.1 Gen 1s and the power port. Opening this up with one hand is not happening here. The front of this laptop is very light as the battery is housed in the rear. The Windows Precision touchpad is smooth as glass and has dedicated buttons. MSI once again using their SteelSeries keyboard here. We have per key RGB, the number pad over on the right hand side, plenty of travel, all in all very pleasant for a gaming keyboard. Maximum temperatures of this keyboard rarely would exceed 41 degrees Celsius even under the most strenuous load. The three buttons on the keyboard deck include the power button. You can also cycle through your RGB keys with the middle button, and the bottom button is a dedicated fan button. Hitting this will max out the fans to a peak decibels of 50 dB. The GE75 Raider does not feature Windows Hello. The glorious 17.3-inch panel is a Full HD 144Hz IPS, and it uses part number AUO409D. Post-color calibration came at 96% standard RGB, 69% NTSC, and 74% Adobe RGB, brightness just over 300 nits. And at the very top is that webcam and mic. Have a look and listen. Software for the GE75 Raider is simple. You have the MSI Dragon Center, pretty standard on MSI gaming laptops here. Feel free to uninstall this if this is not working out well for you, although it is sort of fun to be able to have access to Cooler Boost Advanced Basic Fan profiles as well as the Turbo Comfort ecosystems. It can be fun for some, but you can live without it should you desire deleting it. Now, the MSI SteelSeries keyboard uses its own proprietary software. You'll definitely want this installed as the per key RGB will be controlled with this. It is easy to use, and I quite all of today's testing. We're using BIOS, get ready for it, E17E2IMS.10E. Ambient temperature of 74 degrees Fahrenheit. The 2070 has a thermal throttle spec limitation of 87 degrees Celsius, and of course MSI honors that here. Since this is a 2070 non-max Q, you will see power limit throttling once it gets north of 115 watts. CPU wattage during a run such as 8-64, where we will stress it on its own, the CPU will start to pull around 65 watts, settle down to around 55 watts, and when you're combining the CPU load with the GPU load, it will settle in at around 45 watts. Now on this particular system, with a CPU that would settle at 45 watts, I thought for sure we were going to have some performance issues as I was looking at this, just like basically another 8750H. I really could not have been more wrong. So let's go ahead and start off with some benchmarks here. Cinebench R15 on an 8750H. With its best foot forward, you're going to pull around 1200 points. And on this particular system with the 9750H, didn't do anything. Just fired it off and ran 1278. Now, this particular benchmark's getting a little long in the tooth, so what about Cinebench 20? Well, the 8750H, once again, with its best foot forward, is pulling around 2700, and the 9750H, a little bit over 3000. That's a nice little bump. What about Firestrike? Well, the GE75 Raider is a gaming monster. The 2070 is going to pull 20,000 on Firestrike stock, and the physics score 17,000. That's a solid 1,000 points more than the 8750H on average. Mind you, your 8750H might do better, but I assure you others out there are slower than that. Not bad, 17K on a physics score. What about Port Royale ray tracing benchmark? Pretty much 4,400 points out of this 2070. Very strong running out of this particular Raider, and I quite love it. Now when it comes to games, Battlefield 5, ultra setting, 90-degree field of view, 90 plus FPS all day long. And look at the temperatures here. Now with maximum fan curve of 50 dB, maximum 50 dB. That's only 2 decibels louder than the Legion Y740. We are so far away from thermal throttling thanks to the liquid metal and the overall efficiency of this chassis that we are between 20 and 25 degrees away from T-junction. Thermal performance here is outstanding. What about Far Cry 5? Once again, what is that? High to ultra settings, averaging 90 or 100 FPS and beyond. This game has been notorious for cooking laptops here, and thermal performance is outstanding. Keep something in mind here, guys. I'm not just firing up the game, recording the first 5 minutes. I will sit down and thermal test these for hours straight. Now the Far Cry 5 and Battlefield 5 are both tested with the peak fan curve set. But what about if I don't feel like doing that? Well, how does the auto fan curve scale? Well, HID with their liquid metal has this thing working so well that it stays very cool and very efficient, to where our average gaming decibels are going to be around 44 to 45 dB. This is class-leading acoustics now, playing a game such as Apex Legends. And what does your GPU run? In the low 70s, CPU in the high 70s, maybe 80? And again, we're rocking and rolling on the highest settings here, getting on average 100 FPS, and honestly, above. The fan acoustics are fantastic, averaging in the mid-40s unless you decide to peak that fan curve. Idle fan acoustics are right around 30 decibels, pretty much class-leading overall. What about the audio performance? Oh, it's banging. MSI doesn't call it giant speakers for nothing. Have a listen.